All right, gonna try something a little different here. Back to the reviews pretty soon, but Spyderco did their Volume 15 reveal. Thought I'd flip through it pretty quickly, give folks some thoughts on it. There's a few interesting things in here and a couple head scratchers. So let's dive into it. So first thing right up front, we've got the Techno 3. So obviously the Techno 3, that's going to be the next model from Marcin Swish. Also going to be a Tai Chung made. Oh no, sorry, this one is Italy. Interesting. Okay, so they're making this one in Italy. I'm not sure I love that. It's going to be a flipper frame lock on bearings. You can see it's going to be necessarily a flipper. They're not even having the Spidey hole there. Going back to XHP as all of Swish's has been. And this is very similar in design to his Mouse 3. So they kept that design language. That's why it looks like this. It is small, by the way. This is a 2.64 inch blade, 127 thou thick, 3.3 ounces. So this is going to be about the size of the Techno, but set up as a flipper frame lock. I will tell you, and I'll go through prices of this stuff in a second over on Blade HQ, but first impression of this one, I'm not exactly hyped about it. Part of what is so great about these Marcin Swish designs so far, and I'm a big fan of pretty much all of them. I haven't had a Bowie, but I've owned the Techno multiple times. I've owned the Spidey Chef multiple times. I just ordered another Swayback after selling that too soon. They've all had this wonderful, extraordinarily smooth action, this really nice lockup that Tai Chung has put together, because they've all been Tai Chung made washer opening frame locks. And they've all been extraordinarily smooth, very deliberate, very glassy, really like the closest thing that Spyderco makes to a Sebenza. This is going a completely different direction, and I'm not sure if I like it. Generally, I have not been a big fan of now the Spy Mito. I will say my reviews coming up with that. That one has impressed me. It's been the best thing from Spyderco Italy that I have handled. So this could be indicative of that, but the fact is it's not the direction that I really would have wanted a Spyderco Swish model to go. We'll see as we get closer. Obviously, it's going to be hyped up no matter what, but that's this one here. Now, the next one here, this one I really do love. The Stretch 2 XL in K390. So this one here, first off, just to look at the ratios down here at the bottom, because the Stretch 2 XL, the ratios are fairly absurd. This is a knife that is 3.99 inches long and 2.6 ounces. We're at like 1.5 inches of blade per ounce of weight. I'm not aware of many knives on the market that have that sort of ridiculous blade to weight ratio of the Stretch XL, which previously was available only in VG10. Here, they're keeping basically the same form factor, but doing it in K390, which obviously is a huge upgrade. As you might remember from my review of the Stretch 2, the Crew XL, the Crew Wear version, I liked a lot about that knife. I will tell you, this tip does get a little spindly. It's thin blade stock, 118 thousandths, and with this long a blade and a strong distal taper, it does start to feel a little fine toward that tip. But I think with these FRN scales and with the curvature they put on them, with the way that they round and curve these scales, it'll feel a little more substantial in the hand, and this could be a really good big knife. Personally, I think that this might be what a lot of people have wanted the Native Chief to be. The Native Chief, great knife in the pocket, but it gets so pointy toward the tip that, I mean, I've seen more people probably break their tips on Native Chiefs than any other knife. This form factor is just going to be really nice, and honestly, this is going to be, if you like the size of the military but don't want something as big and chunky as the military, this is going to be a really nice carryable big knife. I mean, again, 2.6 ounces for a full 4-inch blade in K390, that's going to be hard to beat. And you know, Seki City's putting out great quality these days. Let's keep flipping through. We got a bunch of Spy 27 stuff. Spy 27, very nice steel. You know, similar to S35VN. It's a nice, well-rounded steel. It is, in my limited experience, a little nicer to sharpen than S35VN. A little more stainless, maybe. I've had good experiences with it. And it also fits these knives well because S35VN and Spy 27, they are a little bit tougher steels. And especially for something like the Millie and something like the Manix, having a bit of a tougher steel is nice. So nothing that exciting here, getting these in Spy 27, but you know, it's better than nothing. The little native, I could take it or leave it in. I can take or leave that model in general, but it's nice to see it. Now it is interesting what they're doing with the Sage here. They're putting out two versions of the Sage, in the Sage and the Sage Lightweight, both in Spy 27. Most interestingly here, they're making a G10 version with the compression lock. Now, one of the things I've gone back and forth with people in comments about is I have often said, and I believe this is just about objectively true, that Spyderco doesn't actually use FRN primarily to save weight. They primarily use it so they can put these contours on there. Like all these, it's easier for them to make these nice rounded edges, things like that, and some more complex patterns when you got an injected molded polymer than machining G10 to that. I mean, it'd be like Grimsmo level machining to put this whole pattern into G10. And you can see it here. You finally got two models that are identical, same liner, same everything, but one's G10 and one's FRN. You can see the FRN is only saving you 0.2 of an ounce. It's a trivial difference in weight, but you're getting a very different feel here. I really like the way the Sage feels in G10, especially with the light peel ply texture that Seki City tends to put on their G10. This is, I believe, the first time you've been able to get a compression lock and G10 on the Sage 5. The Sage 5 is a really, really nice EDC option. It's just a very balanced blade. It's long enough to do most stuff. It's compact enough to be nice in the pocket. It's, if you like the native 5, but you want sort of Tai Chung's really tight fit and finish, the Sage 5 is a great option. I think these are going to be, you know, they're not exciting in the sense that most people, either they haven't tried a Sage 5 and they really should, or they know the Sage 5 by this point. This isn't anything revolutionary, but these are going to be both really nice, recommendable users for a lot of folks. These two versions here, the Sage 5, full weight and lightweight in Spy 27. Personally, I'm going to favor the G10 version, unless we'll check the prices right after this, but unless there's a big difference in price between the two. This is interesting here, and this was mentioned at Blade Show or wherever. They said that they were going to start using Rex 121. And they've got a couple pages of Rex 1, oh actually no, just the one page of Rex 121 here. So they're starting with just the Sage, again G10 and the lightweight. Rex 121 is a ridiculous steel. When you talk about a high-speed steel, I mean, it's hard, it's brittle, it's not stainless at all, but it is the absolute king of edge retention. I'll see if I can bring up Larry Thomas's charts after this. It is on a completely different level from everything else out there. So these will be very interesting user blades for people that are okay with all the drawbacks you have with tool steels and are okay with a steel that is probably quite chippy and probably extremely difficult to sharpen, but the edge retention on these is going to be out of control. It's interesting to see that. I have really enjoyed my Maximate Spydercos in general. I find that they do hold an edge for a very long time, and it's really cool to have a knife that you can take out for a day no matter what you're going to do, and it's going to be just as sharp at the end of that day as it is at the start of the day. That is cool. That makes me want to use them a lot more, and the stainlessness is easy enough to deal with as long as you know how to treat your blades, and I say that as somebody who literally lives at the beach. So I think these will be very popular. I think people will want to get these, and these don't even seem to be limited runs the way they're positioning it here. They're not saying it's a flash bash. They're not saying it's a sprint run. So it would be very cool for these to be, sort of like the Maxmet versions, another standard issue. I would love to see, the Sage 1 come back in this. I prefer the Sage in a liner lock configuration to this compression lock. But hey, that's more of a personal preference than anything. It's just because that liner lock is so darn smooth on the Sage 1. This is an interesting one here. You have a non-locking, a slip-it version of the Chaparral in Bird's Eye Maple. This is a 2.2 ounce knife, so absolutely lightweight. And honestly, the Chap makes a lot of sense in a non-locking configuration. This is going to be great legally for a lot of people. This is going to be now a sub 3-inch non-locking knife, so I'm pretty sure everywhere in the US that will be legal. And even places like some overseas, some countries, even with strict knife laws, this should be pretty good. And the Chaparral is a great little cutter. And because the Chaparral has never really been a hard use knife, just because that blade stock is so thin, your blade stock is, 0.079, 79 thousandths, which I'm not aware of another knife with blade stock that thin. It makes a lot of sense, the slip joint. The tasks that you would tend to put a Chaparral through are well suited for a slippy. Put it in this Bird's Eye Maple, and it's got a little bit more of that old-timey feel. This, I think, could be a popular knife for, folks that tend to like your old-timey sorts of knives, your old-school slip joints, things like that. This could be popular with a lot of them. They kept the XHP. I mean, this is your standard Chaparral, just made as a slip joint. It's cool that they're doing it. We got a lot of people would talk about these. These Tenaciouses are funny. I've not handled the Tenacious. I like the way it looks. I'm not a big fan of Chinese-made Spyderco. It's not something I'm really looking to explore. What's interesting here is they made them titanium frame locks, but they kept the steel as 8CR13 MOV, which is basically, putting a relatively expensive handle material with a relatively cheap steel. Like, it feels like with the M4 run they did not that long ago, they should have kept the M4, kept, a similar steel, even if you, put something like a Crewwear or a Nitro V or something like that on here. That would be a little bit better. It's a little bit funny to have that combination. They must be milling out this titanium because it's only 3.3 ounces for a 3.35 inch blade. So it sounds like they're doing a decent job on the titanium here. We'll see again where the price comes in at. Here we've got our sprint runs in this reveal, and we've got basically the entire Seki City lineup. Is it the whole thing? Yeah. So we've got the entire Seki City lineup here, from the Man Bug, Dragonfly 2, Delica, Mandela, Endura, Police, and the Stretch 2XL, all in Crewwear. Now, PD1, which most people know better as a functional equivalent of Crewwear. Now, I've talked about this a little bit before when I've reviewed some of these knives. I really like when you've got thin, slicey blades like these, and I'll just flip over to the other page, that are in tougher steels, which PD1 is. Strider used a lot of PD1. Crewwear is a wonderfully balanced steel. I sort of think about it as S35VN if you made it a little tougher, a little less edge retentive, and a little less stainless, but still pretty stainless. I've never had issues with staining on Crewwear. But these knives that are thin by design, putting a tough steel in them, the blade geometry will still give you a lot of functional edge retention. They're still going to cut well, but giving that extra toughness makes it so that you can torque on them a little bit more. You can beat on them a little bit more. Now, the challenge here is, and I this is probably why they put it in this really cool black and red colorway. K390 is still a pretty tough steel, and you can get all of these in K390. If you want, the reasons to get these are, you either like the black and red configuration, or you just really do want even more toughness than K390 provides. Spyderco did do the Indela and the Endura and the Delica and the Dragonfly at least in crew wear before. Those were, I believe, DLT trading exclusives. I had a couple of those, and my experience, like a couple other people, was that the heat treat on those was pretty soft. The edge retention was disappointing. Disappointing compared to what I've gotten from crew wear before, and even what I've gotten from crew wear from American Spydercos. But that doesn't mean that they're going to mess up the PD1. I'm going to hope that they're going to do this well here. I will say, if you want a tactical knife, this Stretch 2 XL in PD1 is a pretty cool option. And the Stretch 2 XL is such a highly recommendable knife. I would love to see the basic Stretch 2 in here in that same configuration. This steel would suit that one really nicely. But honestly, the Indela in this configuration is also going to be a good get. And the Dragonfly, because there are so few good steel options for the Dragonfly right now, if there's some reason you don't like K390, this is a significantly better option than VG10. It's going to be a sprint, but Seki City sprints don't tend to sell out as quickly as a lot of the others, so these shouldn't be too hard to get your hands on. Other sprints, you got the full-size Temperance fixed blades here in crew wear. Fine. I don't really do fixed blades all that much, so I don't really have a strong opinion on those. You've got a Mule Team here in a steel that I have actually never heard of, VGXEOS, which is apparently an analog of VG10, but I'm literally just reading that now. I have nothing to add beyond what the pages show here. And so that's the end of it. I'm going to pause the video here and switch over to Blade HQ so we can look at some prices. All right, now we're over at Blade HQ, and so let's see what these things are going to run us. So the Techno 3, that's $300, which is about what you would expect for a. I mean, basically, if the Spy Mito was in the 250 to 300 range, this being full tie and functionally similar, you know, it's a smaller blade, but similar levels of machining, similar levels of handle complexity. You know, you're not saving money by using XHP as the steel. Yeah, $300 is about what I would have expected for this knife. The two Tenaciouses here, they're coming in cheap. I mean, those are full titanium frame locks that, again, must have some internal milling based on the weight. They're coming in for $132. That's great. This Chaparral Slip It is expensive. $207 for a slip joint version of the Shap. That feels a little rich. I know that that's relatively competitive with where the Shap has been historically, but it feels, if anything, a little higher. And it's a little tough to swallow that in a slip joint configuration. The Rex 121s, as expected, are quite expensive. You know, $300 for a G10 Sage 5, $255 for an FRN Sage 5. That's what you're going to pay for a high-speed tool steel like that. I mean, if you just compare here, like the Rex 121 to the Spy 27 right next to it, you're paying an extra $75, which is similar to the Maximate Premium. So it looks like they're pricing this, you know, ballpark about where Maximate was, which makes sense. It's a similar sort of steel. All of these Spy 27 versions look to be coming in at pretty standard prices for the model, which is typically what you get for Spy 27. Again, great steel for a great price. Again, this Stretch 2 XL in Spy 27 for $169 is going to be a really good buy for a lot of people. If you want a big user knife, if you want a pocketable 4-inch knife, it's going to be hard to recommend stuff over this Stretch 2 XL at $169. With the level of quality that Seki City is going to put into that, that's going to be a really, really good buy. The sprint runs here, they're Seki City sprint runs. They are going to be quite reasonably priced in general. I mean, the fact is getting PD1 for, you know, $136 in the Delica, $127 or 127 in the Delica, 136 in the Enduro, all solid buys. So I have no issue with any of those. I don't think anybody else is going to have any issue with those. They're solid price. And then you got, again, the fixed place here, which I don't really have an informed opinion on. So those are my thoughts on the Spyderco Reveal 15. I will be interested to see more about the Techno 3 as it comes closer. I'm not loving the changes that they chose to make. It feels a little incongruous with the other Swish collaborations. But I will say it is similar to his mouse model. Let me just pause this for a second. Yeah, so here, this is over on Recon 1. And this is the video I could find. Let me just skip to it fully deployed here. Yeah, I mean, that's Marcine's mouse, and that thing is, $2,000, $3,000, sold out probably instantly. So it's a faithful interpretation of the model, that is for sure. And that is, a bearing flipper frame lock. So they translated it well. All of the other Swish designs have been good translations of his existing work. So, hey, fine. If that's the next thing to do, that's the next thing to do. But I don't know if I'm going to love this one. I've been a big fan of some of his other stuff. I'm not feeling this one at first blush. This one I thought it's interesting. It won't be for me. At that price, it's a little more challenging. I will probably want to try these Rex 121s at some point. The problem is, let me actually pause the video one more time. Okay, this from Knife Steel Nerds, ranking 48 knife steels. Again, I mentioned that Rex 121 is in a different league. You can see here, it's, even compared to a lot of people had experience with 15V, or a lot of people have experience with, so there's Maximate there, so it's got about 10% more edge retention over Maximate. And I think Pete over at Cedric Canada found something similar to that. But you're talking a 20% increase over 15V. You're talking a 25, 30% increase over S90V, maybe even a little more than that. You're talking literally double the edge retention of your M390 analog, so it's a pretty ridiculous steel. But then if you look down here at your toughness, you're at the absolute bottom of the pile for toughness. You're talking about something that makes even chippy steels like M398 look tough by comparison. And the problem is, going from 5 pounds to 10 pounds, that's, doubling, but you're down here at like 2.5. So you're talking about something that is like 1/4 the toughness of something like your S35 or your XHP, your well-rounded steels, and something that honestly has probably about half the toughness of even things that we consider chippy steels. It's similar to Maximate, but most people already think that Maximate is fragile, and this will be even more fragile. So I don't know if that further increase in edge retention over Maximate is going to be valuable to me because it comes at the expense of even more toughness. It's sort of like with 15V, they were kind of going in the right direction where they were making something that was a little bit tougher, but still, close on edge retention. That's the direction that's a little bit more interesting to me. So I'm sure people will try a lot of these. I might try them out at some point. We'll see. This Spy 2027 stuff is cool to see. It's a little boring, but I like having these as standard options. They're very easy to recommend. And I like, what seems to be Spyderco's policy of just making sure that everything that comes out that is a standard issue is going to come out in Spy 27. That's a good move. These, I'm just hoping they do the PD one right because of my previous experience with Crewwear. They'll be, if you want a DLC'd Seki City Spyderco, these are going to be as good an option as you're going to find. I like steels like this on these sort of thin, slicey knives more than 20CV or some of the other options you've historically had for DLC version of them. So yeah, That is Spyderco Reveal 15. Hope you found that interesting, even if you just had it on the background. I'll be back to the reviews pretty soon, but I wanted to sort of put this out in the meantime, since I had this in front of me, flip through it, and hey, it might be an easier format for some of you guys to just get a little bit more context or just to listen to somebody talk about it. Hope you have a good one.